Hey, what's going on everybody, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 mod throwback. Today we are checking out the Crossbows of the Commonwealth mod by Tricky Vane. Now this is a classic mod with almost 1 million downloads, so if you haven't heard of it by now, that's absolutely crazy, but for those of you that haven't, you are in for a treat. This is an awesome little crossbow mod. Now we recently had a crossbow mod, and that made me nostalgic and wanting to go back and give this one a little review, as it is a mainstay in my load order. As you can see, this mod adds some nice crossbows to the game, and they actually utilize vanilla animations. So, you fire your crossbow bolt, and then you use the wind-up mechanism from the laser musket to reload it. Now, it is a little odd that the arrow, or the bolt rather, just pops into the crossbow, but this is a mod from 2016, when people were still figuring out how to make weapon mods for Fallout 4, and this was already there, ahead of its time, a really excellent mod. Now this mod is available for PC and Xbox, so Xbox users, you should go ahead and download this one if you haven't already. Now let's take a look at the weapons base stats. So at its core, you get this tiny little wooden quick crossbow, which has a base damage of 62, keeping in mind that my stats may be different, keeping in mind that I have a higher level character, so the stats may be a little bit different. It does shoot crossbow bolts. It has a fire rate of 5, a range of 131, an accuracy of 62, a weight of 4.5 pounds, and a value of 45 caps. Now this seems like a boring little wooden crossbow, but you can actually do quite a bit with it, as you saw from the intro. You can convert it into a more modern crossbow with a scope and a compound bow, or you could even go crazy and give it a plasma-infused induction bow, which is just crazy. I really like the model for this. It's so absurd with the battery packs and everything. This one is awesome, and the animation on it when it fires is really cool. We'll show that one in just a second. You can also go back to the retro style, add some spikes to the end of it, and have it be a flaming crossbow, which is really cool. Now, really quick, I do want to show that all of these bows actually stretch when you pull them back, which is really awesome of the model. I don't know if you can see it very well with this one, but it's also unique to each different crossbow you use. For example, if we grab that plasma crossbow and we pull it back, you can see it actually has a little mechanism with wheels move everything back into place, and then shoot out its plasma bolt, which is just absurd and crazy, but I do love it very much. This is an awesome addition to the mod. You also have access to a handful of different types of bolts, which can all be crafted at the chemistry station. First of which is your standard bolt, which does nothing special, no extra damage bonuses, but is the base for crafting all of the future bolts. Then you have the armor piercing bolt, which of course has armor piercing attributes and will negate some of the target's armor stats. Of course, it wouldn't be a proper crossbow mod without a flaming bolt, which has its own unique model that looks really cool and will of course deal flaming damage to the target. And to counter fire, we of course have the cryo bolt, which does the cryo effect that is existing in a Fallout 4, freezing your enemies on impact. The explosive bolt, which is gotta be one of my favorites. You fire it and it explodes, and what more could you possibly ask for? We have the hypodermic bolt, which will of course give you a little bit of that poison action. This one looks really neat. Here is the sawhead bolt, which will apply bleeding damage. And this one also looks really cool. The shock bolt, which deals a ton of energy damage and is super effective against robots, of course. And then finally, the 45 encased bolt, which has a 45 round kind of infused to the end of it there, and does just an extra raw ballistic damage to the target. So when we take this thing to a weapon bench, we can actually implement a lot of those new ammo types in the new section, and you must first craft them at a chemistry station for them to actually unlock on this weapon, so that is important to note. So firstly, we choose what kind of bow we are using. We have the standard bow, the flaming standard bow. Every variation of the bow has a flaming version as well, so I don't repeat myself. The hunting bow, the compound bow, and the plasma induction bow, which is the only one not to have a flaming version. And that's the one with the crazy aesthetics on the end there. It looks super cool. For the bolts, we have all the ones that I listed earlier, but we'll run through them and their exact effects really quickly. We have the 45 encased bolt, which fires a 45 encased bolt that does bonus, ballistic, and critical damage and has a very fast projectile speed. The regular bolt, which is standard. The cryo bolt, which explodes on impact, dealing a bonus cryo damage, but has reduced speed and range. Explosive bolt explodes on impact, dealing bonus explosive damage, and again, reduced speed and range. The flaming bolt burns the target. The hypodermic bolt poisons the target for 15 points of damage, slightly reduced projectile speed. The sawhead bolt Soft targets bleed for 10 points of bleeding damage, slight increase to critical hit damage, slightly reduced projectile speed. The Shock Bolt explodes on impact, dealing bonus shock damage, greatly reduced projectile speed and range. And finally, the Steel-Tipped Bolt, which is your armor-penetrating bolt, slight increase to critical hit damage, slightly reduced projectile speed. For our stocks, we have the Short Wooden Stock, the Standard Stock, the Commando Light Frame, and the Recoil Light Frame. For strings, we have light strings, medium strings, and heavy strings. The higher up you go, the more damage you do, but the slower the reload speed is. For scopes, we have our standard iron sights, our glow sights, a reflex sight with a dot, and a reflex sight with a circle, the short scope, the short night vision scope, medium, and a medium with night vision scope, and finally long scope, long night vision scope, short recon scope, long recon scope. And finally, we have stirrups. You can choose to have none. You can have a standard foot stirrup, which adds some bashing damage, the bashing stirrup, which adds superior bashing damage, and then the poking stirrup, which has better bashing damage. And that is pretty much it for modifications. However, there's a lot you can do, especially with those different bolt types. Now we're going to go ahead and test this weapon 3 times against a Deathclaw. Once with the lowest possible damage and the worst attachments. We're going to do it again with an explosive bolt just because I want to see how it performs, and then finally with the highest damage we can achieve with the plasma infused bolts, and just see how they all compare with their damages tested on a neutral subject, the Deathclaw. So for starters here, we have the basic version of the crossbow, which I'm very scared about our chances. We have to reload it first. I feel I should mention now, because I forgot to mention it earlier, this weapon is added to the leveled list and will spawn on early level raiders, so it's really cool to find these ones out in the world. As you can see, it barely chipped any off of that Deathclaw there. And he's not too happy with us. And we're stuck. This is definitely not the weapon of choice for dealing with the Deathclaw. That is for sure. And honestly, I don't see us making it out of this one. We may have to cheat a little bit on this car. Ow. The headshot helps. Missing doesn't. And we got him. The lucky shot to the belly. As you can see, you can also collect your bolts back from the Deathclaw. And since we're talking about that, I might as well show it. Bolts do stick in walls and can be retrieved that way as well. Really cool feature. Let's go ahead and check out the explosive tipped crossbow. Here we go with the explosive bolts. As you can see, a much bigger difference. With explosive flaming bolts and a heavy drawstring, we can put down a Deathclaw pretty easily. Let's check out the plasma infused bolts for our final test. We gotta load up our bolt here. And here we are. Line up our shot. We missed. Try that again. Almost one shot. Now, that does some damage over time. I think had that Deathclaw stayed in that initial shot, he would have died with just the one bolt. But there you have it. Our Deathclaws are all put down at the hand of the crossbow. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed our little mod throwback here. This is one of my all-time favorite weapon mods, and it's really cool to be able to come back and show you guys this weapon. Even if you've seen it before, maybe you at least got reminded of it again and got you to download it at least one more time. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like. It gets us into that algorithm and gets more mod recommendations to the people that need them. And consider subscribing if you're not already for more mod throwbacks and mod reviews in the future. We've got a bunch coming and a ton already on the channel. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace!